All right, let's go and do fingers. Should be pretty easy. So for these, let's do, I should do some circles. That'll be fun. All right, we'll scale them down. And then we're going to go ahead and do a freeze transform. Okay, I'm just going to call it left finger cone 1, and then let's do, go ahead and hit G and group it to itself. Left finger con, offset. Okay. Let me grab that. Um, grab the offset group and move it up to the first joint, which is going to be right here at the base of the thumb. We're going to rotate that. Okay. And so we want the orientation. So if I want to close the thumb, you go kind of in that direction, which is what we want. And spread the thumb, and you do like that and rotate. So that actually, that'll work pretty well for us. Make sure we didn't accidentally put that one there. Okay, that'll work. Okay, grab the joint or group. Hit Control D to duplicate. Then we're going to move this up to here. So we're going to snap it up to this one. Same idea. So yeah, just a little like that. Okay. Control D. Over here. And actually, that one, that might be a little bit hard to get. Um, get it in there just because it's buried in there. So I may switch over to a different type of controller, or we may just reshape the controller a little bit. So we'll just do, yeah, we'll just reshape it. I'm actually going to shrink it. I'm doing it through the offset group, and I'm uniformly going to be shrinking the size of that controller. So that actually will be fine. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Now, I keep saying uniformly. When I say uniformly, I mean scale X, Y, Z are all the same. This isn't scaling one way versus another. The reason why it's important is because when we chain these together, if they're not uniformly scaled, then they can throw off or bend or warp their children controllers. So we do not want to do that. We don't want to cause that problem. Okay. All right. Control D. Go ahead and move this over. All right. Gonna rotate that. Okay. Rotate that just so it kind of aligns with the finger itself. Again, so we can more easily close the fingers. Okay. Rotate. Okay. Offset groups, make sure we're grabbing those. We're just going to be positioning. Just kind of eyeballing it really just to make sure it's lining up. Okay. Control D. Okay. That's good. Rotate this a little bit. Control D again. Okay. Now it's going to be rotate a little bit more. Just like that. I'm grabbing that controller, moving directly up to the offset group. Control D. Duplicate. And then I'm moving it to the joint. So V is allowing me to snap to that joint. Okay. Control D and V. Make sure it's actually going to the joint itself. Just kind of lining it up right there. Okay. Control D. V. Control D. Okay. All right, let's go and move these over. I don't want the orientation to be too different from what the base is, but I just want to make sure we're staying as true to the direction that the finger's going as much as possible. So simple like that. Okay. All right. So that's going to be all of our finger controls. I'm going to go in and freeze some of these transforms just to kind of simplify things. I'm going to freeze the translation on the group, and I'm going to freeze the translation on the scale. Okay, just so we kind of avert any possible issues. Actually, if I bring up the freeze transformation options, I can tell it to freeze translation and scale. And I can actually turn off joint orient. So I can actually kind of make this go just a little bit faster. Okay. And just kind of show you, again, just remind you why we're kind of doing this. So we want the controller to be able to bend the entire finger in one simple go. If I go in and actually reset so if I go in, like say with the offset group, which does have translations on it or transformations on it, and I go in and I freeze that rotation, so it goes to 0. If I hit the rotational control, you see how it changes the orientation to it? And then if I go down to this child, finger command 1, you see it actually is taken on the parent's rotation orientation. So that is a reason why we do want to have that offset group to alleviate this problem. So we do have that rotational value here on the parent, which is going to be that offset group. And then when we click on the controller, it's nice and even. It's easy to work with. Okay. Just to, again, re-explain kind of why I'm doing this. All right. All right, I'm just going to name these real quick. Mid, index base, mid base, pinky base. Pinky mid. Pinky tip. Mid, mid, mid tip. Index mid, index tip. Okay, we'll just open these up. So we'll need to name the controllers. Base, mid, and there's not a thumb tip. We don't have that extra joint. Index base, index, I'm sorry, mid base, pinky base. And if you wanted to do something simpler, like just do like finger 1 base, finger 1 mid, finger 1, tip, or finger 1 joint 1, finger 1 joint 2, finger 1 joint 3, finger 1 joint tip, or controller tip, something like that. Like that works. I'm just kind of doing this system because this is what I like. This is how I kind of think about it. So I know kind of where positions are for everything. Pinky mid. It's just, in my opinion, it's more important to keep yourself consistent than it is to switch around. So as long as someone can look at your stuff and understand like what you're naming or what you're working with, that's really the important thing. Joint, controller, pinky, tip. And it's going to be mid, 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 tip. Index mid. Index tip. Okay, so that took a minute, but we got them all named, and now we just need to kind of put everything, link them together the way they need to be linked. So index mid needs to go to index base, and remember the offset group gets nested under its parent controller. And mid goes to mid base. pinky tip goes to pinky mid goes to pinky base, and then thumb mid goes to thumb base. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers. All right, I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to group them left hand finger con group. Okay, so they're all grouped together. All right, now we're going to start selecting controller joint and doing our constraints. I'm going to do orient constraints, maintain offset, add, hit G, and that's just going to go to each one of these. Remember, we're doing parent, child, parent, child, parent, child. Parent in this case is the controller. Child is the joint. And it's the controller, not the offset group, that we do the orient constraint to. Okay. Now, if this works, we should be able to grab multiple controllers and use. See how we're using one direction to close the fingers? Exactly what we want. That's good. Okay, that's good. That's real good. All right. All right, the finger con group. I'm going to actually go and take these and let's group it to itself. Actually, I'm sorry. Where's the finger con group? Oh, its origin still down here. So actually, I'm going to take that finger con group. Let's shift P. I don't need this group. Left hand finger con group. I'm going to go to edit, duplicate special. Remember, we still have that -1 on the X. I'm going to duplicate them. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go take these guys. We're going to go to modify, search or replace names, search for left, replace with right. Going to go down the hierarchy, replace. So it should name everything with right, which is good. That's what we want. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. All right. So let's go and attach these controllers to their children, which are going to be the joints. So we're doing rigging, constrain. Again, this is going to be orient. G. So not everything can be mirrored over. So some of this we do have to reconnect, but I'm taking steps to try to save as much time as possible, just to make it a little bit easier. Oop. Oh, I accidentally did orient constraint on this guy. I accidentally did orient constraint in the wrong direction. Okay. Constrain, orient. Constrain, orient. Is that working? That works. That works. Okay. Okay. So this guy, let's go right here. So constrain, orient. Okay. 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 Yeah, good reason to go and test. Just make sure you don't mess something up. Okay. Okay. All right. And we have that one. And you want to make sure with each one of these FK controls, the controllers themselves should not have anything highlighted on the translates, rotates, or scales. They should be in control of all their other stuff. If they have something highlighted, that means they have some sort of constraint on them, which we do not want. Okay. All right. Let's fix that name. Okay. We'll take the finger tongue group, modify center pivot. We'll do the same thing with the other one. And I'm actually going to center, I'm going to place the pivot right on the null joint. I'm going to take this pivot. It's going to go right here. Okay. It's going to be important because we're actually going to be attaching, just like we did with this controller, attaching these joints to that null joint, or to that, or these controllers to that null joint. That's just going to be making sure that we keep our controllers with our hand as they move between IK and FK. Okay, so we got all that. And then we're going to go ahead and take the left hand. Let's organize this a little bit. We'll take the left hand, or sorry, right hand. Where is that? Right here. So the parent is going to be the null joint. And I'm going to grab that con group that I created. Okay. Then we're going to use a parent constraint. Okay. So that's going to be the con group. It's going to be parent constrained to the null joint. I'm going to grab this null joint. And that's going to be constrained to the con group right here for the left hand con group. Parent. Okay. So then what happens is when I rotate and move the arm, you'll see it's moving with the FK. But then when I switch, it goes with IK. And let's test that with both of these. See, there we go, it's moving. The fingers aren't shearing off, they're not stretching, they're not sticking with either of these control systems. They're going, basically, they're just going with the skinning joints, which is exactly what we want. So that's perfect. Finger joints, finger controls, need to stay on at all times. And I'm just using simple Orient constraints to control them, okay? Again, big thing is you want to make sure the orientation, the rotation orientation of these controllers goes down the direction of the finger, so we can open and close the hand or the fingers with, a very easy rotation of one of the axes, and that's what we're looking for. So if we grab all of these, and go ahead and do that, see? Okay. Something else we want to think about is simplifying the rig as much as possible. So with these particular controllers, I'm never going to translate them. I don't need to translate these things. So I'm simply just going to be rotating them. That's all I'm ever going to do. And so we can do that. We can simplify this by hiding by locking and hiding our translations and our scales over here. So I can do lock and hide and selected. So all you are able to do is rotate. You can't actually do anything else, which is useful. Just like I did for these guys, the switch. And then we can do the same thing for the arm controls. And this really comes down to this is a good idea in practice anyways, just to kind of like lock and hide parts of a rig that don't need to be messed with. So like with these ARM, FK controls, you just need to rotate them. You're not going to translate them. They're not stretchy. They're not really anything. So if you want, you can just lock and hide, or you can hide, or whatever you want to do. Actually, the visibility does have a key, so I'm actually going to leave that. I'm going to lock and hide the other bit. Let's do lock and hide, lock and hide, lock and hide. There we go. And then the visibility, I'm just going to go to hide because we still want it to work. We don't want to lock it. There we go. Clavicle. You can mess with the translation, scale, visibility. And we can do lock and hide that as well, again, because it is just going to be rotating and that's it. Root, we're going to be translating and rotating it. So we need to leave that. Same thing with, the ribbon spine, that kind of is part of the point. Toe controls, we could do the same thing with that. We could only have rotations available for that. Foot control, we kind of need everything. So anyway, locking and hiding parts of the controller is good, as long as you make sure you know what the reasoning is, or the reason you're doing it. Now, if you ever lock and hide something accidentally, and you need to get it all back or get it back into place, the way we're going to do it is we're going to go to edit. Where is it? I think it's channel control. There it is. Channel control. So you got keyable, non-keyable hidden, and non-keyable displayed. Non-keyable hidden means that it's locked and hidden. And you can go in, and if you want to move something over like visibility, you can move it to keyable visible. So if you want to move that over, you'll see it goes back over. And if you want to take it out, you can move it back over to the right, and you'll see it's invisible. So you can bring stuff back and forth from this point. Okay. All right. Go and save it. So effectively, we're done with this portion. We can go ahead and start putting stuff up, essentially. Yeah. So we'll go and start kind of organizing things a little bit. So let's go ahead and pause the video, and we'll come back and do another one about organization.